like winning money? Or do you prefer to set it on fire? Well, either way, you're in luck. Here's this week's edition of Big Al's Big Five. Let's win some money.
What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back to you one more time to try this whole gambling thing again. Last week we went 2-3 on the BAB 5, as I have now called it, the Big Al's Big Five. 2-3 last week. I got some doozies for you this week. However, before we get into all that, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. You could follow me at AJ Brault. It is on the screen below. You know the spiel. Let's just get right into this week's games, starting with, this is going to shock some people, Houston at Miami. Houston on the road in Miami, 6.5-point dogs. I kind of like the Texans this week, and let me tell you why. Tyrod Taylor, that's really the only reason. Tyrod Taylor is back. When they had him early in the season before he got injured, they weren't that bad. Miami is awful. Miami hasn't been good this entire season. They went from 10-6 last year to only a 1-win team this year. That's more than just Tua stuff. There's more stuff going on around that organization. So 6.5 points with Houston. Houston's not as bad as everybody thinks. Yes, they have a lot of drama. They have a lot of distractions. They have Davis Mills, who has the second biggest neck in the NFL next to Nick Foles. Like, the Texans aren't perfect, but the Dolphins are much worse. And let me just say, Tyrod Taylor back for Houston, huge difference. 6.5 points on the road. All you got to do is keep it close against a terrible Miami team? Yeah, sign me up. Book it. Texans at Miami. Take the Texans. I like that game this week. Next up, we have the Vikings at the Ravens. So the Vikings are 5.5-point dogs in Baltimore. Baltimore favored. 5.5 to me feels like a really small number. Miami. Minnesota just lost to Dallas's backup quarterback. Yes, and I said last week on this very show, it was one of the games I got right. Dallas, even with a backup, has weapons. Well, Minnesota couldn't take advantage of that. Yes, it is a backup with weapons, but it's still a backup. They didn't have to worry about Dak. This was a much lesser Cowboys offense, and they still blew it. The Baltimore offense is going to be way better than the offense they saw last week. That Minnesota defense is okay. They're not great, but Baltimore only 5.5. Now, I warn you, anytime there's a 5-point line anywhere, that makes me think that Vegas knows something. That makes me think that Vegas just wants to take your money because 5.5 is an odd number. But Baltimore has to win by 6 at home against a pretty crappy Vikings team. Yeah, I like Baltimore this week at home. Minnesota. Well, and look, as a Packer fan, we obviously root against the Vikings. But I like Baltimore at home getting 5.5. I would swallow the points, take Baltimore. Next up on the slate, Cleveland at Cincinnati. This one's going to be interesting. If you listen to the show from yesterday on our actual Lockdown Corner podcast, if you listened yesterday, there was a lot of talk about the Odell Beckham drama. He just got released today. So whatever you think of Odell Beckham, that distraction is now gone. Baker has his core guys again. Baker's banged up. Cincinnati, it was a look-ahead game last week against the Jets. I was so mad I didn't think of it. But it was a total look-ahead game. Jets, yeah, we got it. Let's put our focus towards Cleveland because that's a bigger game and more important for them. Fair enough. But Cincinnati, 2.5-point favorites at home against Cleveland. I think Cincinnati bounces back. I think this is going to be an entertaining game. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they are getting healthier, but I just don't trust all their weapons. Now, when Odell is out, when Beckham is not in the lineup, Cleveland seems to play better on offense. I have no questions about the Cleveland defense. I think Cincinnati's offense versus their defense is going to be interesting. I think they're pretty even. I really like the Cincinnati offense. But Cleveland on the road with a banged-up Mayfield, a slowly coming back to his former self, Jarvis Landry, no Odell Beckham. Yeah, you have Nick Chubb back, and he looked decent for the snaps that he got last week, but still a little banged up. It's tempting to go Cleveland here, but I like Cincinnati in a bounce back spot. I just think Cleveland has too much to overcome on offense. And I want to say Baker played well last week, but I will say I just like Cincinnati a little bit more at home. All they got to do is win by a field goal. Cool. I'm cool with that. Sign me up. Cincinnati at home beating Cleveland. Next up, game 4 of our Big Five. One of the games I'm looking at on the slate here, I have another screen. That's why I'm looking this way, because I have a screen here. LA at Philly. It's a cross country. I get it. But the Chargers are favored by 1.5 points. This Philadelphia team has been awful. I don't really understand what would make, and granted, again, East Coast, West Coast, I get that. Teams that travel all the way to the East Coast from the West typically don't perform as well. But you're telling me that game is basically a pick 'em? Like, it's a toss-up? I don't think that's right. And I know LA struggled last week against New England. I get it. Justin Herbert has had 2 pretty rough games in a row. I understand that. They're a little banged up on offense. I get that. And Philly is coming off a great win. Kind of. They played Detroit. Okay, well, you ran the ball effective against Detroit. Congratulations. Like, you didn't I guess you accomplished something. A win's a win, and you can't take that away from them. They got the win. They did what they had to do. But this Eagles team is not very good. Jalen Hurts is my fantasy quarterback in 2 out of my 3 leagues. And, I mean, he's been okay fantasy-wise, but I watched a lot of that Detroit game because of that reason. I needed a win, and I needed a big game from him. I think Philadelphia is kind of figuring out who they are. They're a run-first team because they don't trust their young quarterback. But that all being said, that offense of Philadelphia is not going to keep up. If the Chargers figure it out and they get rolling, that offense of the Eagles is not going to be able to keep up with the Chargers. So a 1.5 point favorite on the road, basically a pick 'em. Yeah, I'll take the Chargers. They can definitely win by 2. It wouldn't shock me if they win by double digits in this game. I like the Chargers this week. And finally, I teased it on the show yesterday. If you were listening to that, if not, please go check that out on Apple or Spotify. But Green Bay at Kansas City. Green Bay was favored in this game. Rodgers tested positive for COVID. We covered all of that. I'm not going to cover any more of that on this show, but we covered that on the podcast last night. 7.5 point favorites now are Kansas City. You know what's funny about that? The Kansas City struggles are well documented, right? This isn't new information. As I look up their box score here, and yes, we're doing this live today. Let's just look. Okay. So they had a Monday night game. So Kansas City, short week, barely beat the Giants, who are now, well, they were 2-5 at the time. They're 2-6 now. And the Chiefs scrape to 500 at 4-4. What from this Kansas City team has anyone believing that they should be 7.5 point favorites over anybody? Look, I'm not saying Green Bay is going to win this game. I think Jordan Love is going to surprise some people. In fact, I'm jealous. I heard this take today, and I'm jealous I didn't say it first. But it's so right. If you look at the Jordan Love preseason and week 1, the limited snaps, granted, because he was hurt for some of the preseason, and obviously it was a blowout week 1, he had a lot of Josh Allen in him. So if you're telling me that, this is a young Josh Allen, I think Packer fans would be thrilled. I don't really know what to expect from them this game. I know that Kansas City's run defense is god-awful. So it's going to be a lot of Aaron Jones and a lot of A.J. Dillon. You want to keep Mahomes on the sideline. I think that is the plan. Even though Mahomes has struggled, I still think the threat of that offense, especially with the defense still being relatively banged up for Green Bay, I still believe that that's going to be the game plan going in. And I believe Jordan Love has an opportunity to this could be not a coming out party because, again, he's still very raw. He hasn't played a lot, especially not having only playing for 2 out of 3 preseason games. That hurts. But what I will say is that I think he's going to hang. And I don't think this Chiefs team is very good. I know everyone keeps saying that. That's not new information. But I'm just looking at the box score. Mahomes against a pretty terrible Giants team. 29 for 48, 275 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. If you would have told me that Mahomes would have thrown for basically 50 times and not eclipse 300 yards before the season started, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Especially against the Giants of all teams. Something's off with that team. I don't know if it's health. I don't know if it's boredom. And here's the number that also freaks me out about Kansas City. Travis Kelce on Monday night, 4 catches, 27 yards, no touchdowns. Where is Travis Kelce? Tyreek Hill might not be getting a lot of yards, but he's getting a heck of a lot of targets. In fact, on Monday, he had 12 catches for 94 yards and a touchdown. Where's Travis Kelce? I heard this analysis, and this is not mine, so I want to give credit where credit's due. The Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny. It's an ESPN podcast. Very informative. Go check that out. Free plug for them, I guess. They were talking about Kelce's not quite finding the holes in the defense that he has been known to do. So everyone, they know what's coming. Everybody knows the Packers and every other team knows what that defense is going to give them. And every defense in the NFL knows what that offense is going to try and do. They're going to try and get the explosive 70-yard play. And if they can't, then what? Then you got to check down to Kelce. Well, if you take Kelce away, now they're relying on Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson and a weak run game. Okay. But Kansas City's not adjusting. Mahomes is not adjusting. You can tell just eye test. I am not an NFL analyst, but he's always looking for the deep shot. And this year, teams are taking it away. And he's been unlucky too. Let's face it. There's been a lot of interceptions he's thrown that's been off somebody's hands or off someone's helmet. And the defense just happens to be standing there. Nothing you can do. I get that. But they are 7.5-point favorites at home. Kansas City, horribly difficult place to play. I understand all of that. But this is not a Brett Hundley situation where they're going to throw this kid in and it's just going to be pass. And he's not ready for that. I believe Mike McCarthy ruined Brett Hundley. I don't think he's as bad as what his NFL career turned out to be. I think he was a lot better than that. I don't think LaFleur, we know this. LaFleur knows how to game plan. We've seen it. Last week in Arizona, hey, you don't have any weapons, Rodgers, we'll figure this out together. And they ran the ball a lot, and they were effective in the short passing game. Great. I expect a lot of the same for this week. And for that reason, and the memory of Aaron Jones torching the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, I believe the Packers will cover, and I think they have a good shot at winning. I just do not like this Chiefs team at all. So you're telling me the Packers have to stay within 7 points? I like that. I think that's very doable, and I think they can win this game. So that is it for this week's BAB 5. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that like button below. Follow me on Twitter right there at AJ Brault. You can follow the podcast at Corner Lockdown on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook as well. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page so you get exclusive content like this. Thank you for watching. And as always, and especially this week for Jordan Love,